Watchmen, Chapter 4, Watchmaker, by Vineet Motha. In the wake of the bombing of Hiroshima, John's father, a watchmaker, pushes his son to give up a career in watchmaking and become a scientist. In 1959, John attends Princeton University and becomes employed by a research lab in Arizona. Then and there, he meets and falls in love with Janie Slater. Later, Janie's watch is broken at a carnival by a fat man, which is a reference to the Fat Man nuclear bomb, which was the second bomb dropped on the city of Hiroshima. John fixes the watch, but later he forgets about it in his lab coat, and eventually gets locked inside the test vault while trying to retrieve the watch. John frantically begs to be released, but his colleagues return from lunch shocked, as the vault automatically time-locked and the generators have already started warming up for the experiment. John is disintegrated into a flash of light, and a month later, ghosts of John begin to appear, first as a circulatory system, and then a muscled skeleton until finally resembling almost a Superman-like being with blue skin and superhuman abilities. After that, he was quickly recruited by the United States military and renamed into Dr. Manhattan, which is another reference to the Manhattan Project, which was an American-led effort to develop a functional atomic weapon during the Second World War. See Dr. Manhattan on the surface of Mars, glaring into the starry night and thinking about his past. The title Watchmaker makes an allusion to the Watchmaker theory, which states that if there is a watch with the purpose, you'd assume there is a watchmaker, and again, if there is a world, you'd assume there's a creator behind that world. This was stated by philosopher William Paley in Natural Theology. A cover also includes an image of a clock, which has 8 minutes until midnight. The featured quote at the end of the chapter was said by Albert Einstein. The quote references quantum mechanics and shows how quantum mechanics destroys any real view of the universe being deductive, which is ironic because Dr. Manhattan's time sense is deductive itself. The quote also references the watchmaker, as Albert Einstein was one of the founding members of the creation of the nuclear bomb. He sees himself as the watchmaker of that residual product. There are many symbols throughout the chapter. The hydrogen atom is a symbol repeated very often through this chapter. It is always apparent on Dr. Manhattan's forehead. The symbol also makes another reference to the Vitruvian Man, which is a diagram drawn by Leonardo da Vinci. The symbol represents a hydrogen atom, which is also the simplest atom in the periodic table. The last major reoccurring symbol in the chapter is the photograph of John and Janie. It appears throughout the chapter from the beginning all the way to the conclusion. John even goes out of his way to retrieve it before he runs off to Mars, and he comes to a personal revelation because of it. One of the themes that has recurred most through the chapter is watchfulness. The hydrogen atom of Dr. Manhattan is suggestive of the third eye dot worn by traditional Hindu women. Broken clocks and watches both fit the theme for watchfulness, as the chapter is mainly surrounded by time. I think John's character ties into the watchfulness theme of the chapter very well due to his passive nature and prefers to always take the rear seat when it comes to work for the government. A prime example of this would be during the assassination of John F. Kennedy, where he's just sat idle and watched the events unfold. There are many real-life examples that we see that are included in the novel, such as the bombing of Hiroshima. On August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay dropped the world's first nuclear bomb onto the city of Hiroshima in Japan. The Watchmen makes loads of references to the Hiroshima bombing. Dr. Manhattan himself, as stated earlier, is the code name for the project the bombs were under. This alludes to Dr. Manhattan being a weapon for the United States government, and shows how distant he is from humanity as a whole, and how he's known solely and seen only as a protection from other countries and incoming attacks/threats. The contrast between the comedian and Dr. Manhattan's ideologies is also on display during the chapter. Though both see human life from similar perspectives, it disturbs Dr. Manhattan that the comedian can so easily accept this, but also participate in such corruption. Dr. Manhattan is often represented through time. His main symbol and motif is time, in my opinion. Dr. Manhattan lives through all time. He's experienced the future already while he's experiencing the present. This makes it not only confusing for the reader, but also for the characters in the book. Time and the way Dr. Manhattan experiences puts a strain on his personal relationships that he has with people. He can already see their end in the beginning. For example, with his ex, Janie Slater. He sees himself being blamed for cancer in the future. This not only shows how distant he has become from human emotion, but also how obsolete humans have become to him. Dr. Manhattan can see the future, but he never wants to change it, as he believes that the universe should run its course. As mentioned earlier, a prime example would be the assassination of JFK, where he just stood by. The last thing we'll be discussing today is the order of the panels in Chapter 4. The way the panels are laid out in Chapter 4 helps convey Dr. Manhattan's story arc. The first thing to note in the chapter is that we as the audience view the story through the same eyes as Dr. Manhattan, so we experience all the same things as he does, like his emotions and his thought process. So when he views the photograph 12 seconds in the future, as the readers we view it the same. The flashbacks between Dr. Manhattan and John shows more of his loss of humanity, and as well as how Dr. Manhattan sees time. The panels are laid out in somewhat of a chronological order, which is complete contrast to the rest of the book, because when he's on Mars he experiences time differently, and this could explain the shift in patterns. And to summarize, this chapter showed the past events that occurred for the character of John to become Dr. Manhattan. It showed that his past events built who he had become, therefore causing his overall attitude towards the abandonment of humanity. Alright, thank you for watching, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.